6 billion people, innumerable cultures, countless ideas. In this world of unrest, yearning and horror, there's a constant zeal to form a better planet. As the words of the spin doctors leave a numbness within those searching for the truth, come with us and observe Globespin. Welcome to Globespin. This week we feature a compassionate story on how a giant marketing cooperative called Fairtrade is creating a better deal for primary producers in third world countries. Laos gets a strong vote of confidence in pursuit of its development goals. We profile a country that was finally getting itself together after 3 decades of war, only to be devastated by a natural disaster. Flood-ravaged Mozambique. In our world, we see if yuppies with consumer blues can make a difference as they seek more to life in volunteer service overseas. Places and Spaces looks to Mecca, where the Saudi government has allowed the British to set up special services for British pilgrims during Hajj. We profile UN aid to Palestinian efforts to rehabilitate youth clubs in Gaza and the West Bank. All this and much more in this edition of Globespin. It's a familiar sight all over the world. But for Mario Davlis and his family, the price the West pays for its coffee is literally a matter of life and death, of real survival. Some years the coffee growers are forced to sell their beans well below cost, and this means no school for their children, no medicines and crippling debt. But now there's some hope for primary producers like Mario. The Fairtrade movement gives support to third world primary producers. It's an initiative that is sweeping Britain and is gaining momentum with the public and policy makers. Two years ago, the Houses of Parliament became the first British institution to serve only coffee carrying the Fairtrade mark. Visitors to the seat of British government can sip a blend made from beans bought directly from the growers' organisations at a fair price.
Just take a sip out of it.
Just lower it, Costa Rica. You're drinking fair trade coffee, but it's also actually very good coffee.
The sales of Fairtrade products are growing at some 40% a year in Britain, including clothes as well as food. Above 3,000 feet on the rim of the Peruvian Andes sits the headquarters of Cocla. It's a coffee farmers' cooperative. Many of its 5,000 members have only a few acres of coffee, but by working together, they can successfully compete against large private conglomerates. Fairtrade provides greater security for the producers by guaranteeing a minimum price. It makes a huge difference.
Ayan mga makadilaw tayo. Pambahalan tayo. Ilang mo. Lagi gamot sih kalau saya ni dia menurut pengarah. Direct from Mozambique.
Unlike coffee, tea is grown in the main on large plantations like this one in Tanzania. But this is a plantation with a difference and one of the most modern in the world. It's owned by the Commonwealth Development Corporation and sells its output on fair trade terms. Fair trade is a win-win situation. It helps create a motivated workforce, productivity is enhanced, and the whole community benefits. Houses, schools, medical clinics, the way people are treated, and importantly, stable salaries. Even the way the area is beautified is all part of the approach fair trade takes towards the totality of health, safety, and the environment. For the UK consumer, it's a question of choosing the right goods from the bewildering array on the shelves. Fair trade companies are skilled at getting the best deal for producers in competition with mainstream suppliers. Fair trade as a concept extends to every part of the primary producer's life. In this area of Tanzania, honey has been harvested from the forest since time immemorial. Edward and his family rely on the income, and he sells his honey through a local cooperative under fair trade agreements.
They are being...
Customers may choose this honey because it's organic and tastes wonderful. Or, being fair trade, they know it provides a good income to poor farmers, money to put children through school, to build houses and improve third world communities. The range of products coming under the fair trade umbrella is constantly broadening. Quality chocolate comes from these golden beans of Ghana. Small producers grow all the beans that provide more than half the country's income. Kuapa Cocoa is one of the country's first farmer-controlled cooperatives, and fair trade has been instrumental in its success. Fair trade organisations from several European countries provided both advice and cash. Now, after only 7 years, the co-op can pay its farmers a bonus. It's just one example of how fair trade makes a difference. The lives of millions more could be transformed if more commodities were fairly traded. In early March, a national fair trade fortnight will be launched in Britain by a host of UK celebrities. Its aim is simple: to ensure that growers in developing countries get a fair deal for their goods, with all the social, economic, education, health and environmental benefits that follow. Since the 1970s, Laos has been a member of the United Nations club called Least Developed Countries. There are 48 nations in this category, and the list is growing. But Laos, a tiny landlocked state in Southeast Asia, is quietly working to graduate from this group by the year 2020, and it is putting its money where its mouth is. Since sweeping economic reforms were launched in the 1980s, Laos has transformed itself from an economic basket case to a thriving concern. Economic growth leaped by an annual rate of 7% for the last 5 years. The International Monetary Fund gave the government top marks for taming the inflation rate from 25% in 1995 to only 7% in 1996. But the picture's not all rosy. Despite recent progress, most of the people's basic needs remain unrealised. Life expectancy is only 52 years. Primary health care is rudimentary, especially in the rural areas. The UN Development Programme has established a strong presence in the country, uniting the essential skills, services and assistance of the whole UN system in Laos. The UN is also tackling the widespread poverty in the more remote parts of the country, where infrastructure is limited and poverty alleviation is difficult. Creating jobs means making land available for cultivation. The UN administrators have created a trust fund to rid the country of unexploded ordnance. These UXOs continue to kill and maim people at the rate of 1 every 2 days. At a recent meeting sponsored by the UN in Geneva, donor countries gave strong support to Laos by pledging an unprecedented $1.2 million in development assistance. Good administration, legislation and the rule of law were stressed by donors as important to further foster a free market economy. At a recent conference in Malaysia, Laos was admitted to the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, ASEAN. With its domestic economy improving, integration with its neighbours means more trade and investment opportunities. Once isolated, Laos is now joining the mainstream. Mozambique in Southeast Africa has had a troubled history. Independence was gained in 1975 after a 10-year struggle against the Portuguese. They had ruled the country since 1500, from when it was a centre of the slave trade. More recently, 15 years of civil war has taken its toll on the land and its people. With demining completed, Mozambicans were getting their country back together again and rebuilding infrastructure when yet another disaster hit, this time a natural one. Devastating rain flooded the vast plain that covers almost half of this already poor country. It's estimated that up to 1 million people of its 20 million population are homeless and thousands are feared dead. The first flight out of the UK with specialist equipment, rescue boats and volunteer crews from the International Rescue Corps, the Fire Brigade and the Department for International Development. 2 support vehicles have also been loaded, as well as dual-purpose life rafts doubling as tents. The rafts can be thrown out of an aircraft to people who can't be reached by helicopters. Relief coordinators believe there is little they can say to prepare the rescue team for what lies ahead. Emergency crews have already rescued thousands of people, but an increasing problem is the much larger number of people who are not in immediate danger, but who are cut off from everything. The challenge is to look after these people where they are. It will require the same transport capacity to get food and other supplies into them as it will to get the others out. Britain has also detached a Navy supply ship from its Arabian Gulf Patrol. The Fort George, a 32,000-ton Royal Fleet auxiliary vessel. It will deliver fuel and medicine and provide 5 Sea King helicopters. Aid is steaming into Mozambique, but distribution is difficult. Britain is providing 7 additional helicopters and 2 transport planes. The UK public, like committees all around the world, are responding generously. With the Fort George in Mozambique waters, 5 Sea King Royal Navy helicopters fly out on missions to rescue stranded survivors and to deliver essential supplies to the flood-ravaged country. Nearly 6,000 people have been rescued in recent days, but thousands more remain stranded in trees and on rooftops. The long-term effect on this already impoverished nation is incalculable. World Vision, like a host of aid agencies, is working overtime as the floodwaters recede, rescuing stranded people. Accurate casualty figures won't be available until the Limpopo and Save rivers return to normal. Here, near the flooded Essecatain village, 300 people have been taken to a patch of dry land. Basically, it's an island in the middle of nowhere, surrounded on all sides by floodwaters. Clean water remains a top priority. Otherwise, the rescued are reduced to drinking floodwater. And the risk of disease is high. It's vital to get supplies through quickly. The floods have brought misery, disease and despair, but also stories of survival and hope. In this refuge hospital, in the Check Lane camp, a woman gave birth to twins. a small ray of light in a devastated country. Some of the lucky ones. The refuge camps are full to overflowing, and with more rain forecast, this impoverished country is going to need all the international aid it can get. This baby girl was just 1 hour old when she was rescued with her mother. Mozambique's immediate future looks increasingly precarious, but for the moment at least, this tiny survivor is safe. Despite its poverty, Mozambique was forging ahead with long-term development projects. Once this current emergency is over, it is hoped international aid will continue in the long-term rehabilitation effort to bring Mozambique back into its stride, back on the track it was travelling before the floods hit. Young, highly paid professionals grafting their way up the corporate ladder. Not the kind of people you'd expect to take a few years off to work for a pittance in some of the poorest countries on earth. But voluntary service overseas, the British charity providing young volunteers to work in developing countries, has seen a big jump in the number of business people and managers applying to do just that. Suffering consumer blues, it gives them a chance to reassess their own values while giving something back to the less privileged. Developing countries like Bangladesh, though, are not interested in young Europeans just wanting to escape the rat race. Management consultant Sarah Ireland is an example of how the modern skills of young Western professionals can help businesses in developing countries get on in the competitive global economy with longer-term planning and developing new programs. Good healthcare is vital in Bangladesh, a country where 1 in 10 babies dies before it reaches its first birthday. VSO volunteer Richard Butterworth is not a nurse or doctor, but an accountant. He's helping the hospital keep better track of its finances. He finds all his work immensely satisfying, and it's not just a desk job either. Richard assists a rural development program by evaluating a loan scheme designed to help small businesses get on their feet. 50 years since its founding, VSO is much more choosy about the skills required of its volunteers, but the numbers coming forward show no signs of diminishing. Islam is a fast-growing religion in Britain. This year, 200 British Muslims are expected to make the Hajj, or annual pilgrimage to Mecca. It is one of the 5 pillars, or central tenets, of Islam. Every year, about 2 million make the pilgrimage. This year, the Saudis have allowed a little bit of Britain into Mecca. For the first time, British pilgrims will have access to consular as well as medical services in the holy city. A temporary consulate will be set up there for the Hajj season. There will also be doctors and counsellors in the pilgrim camps in Mina, Muzdalifah and Arafat, sites which are visited during the pilgrimage. Leaders of the 13-strong British delegation thanked the Foreign Office for sponsoring the service. They hope this initiative will have a positive effect on interfaith relations in Britain and beyond. British Muslims are proudly British as well as being proudly Muslim. Next year, the government plans to provide and even extend these consular and social services to British Muslims on what is one of the most important journeys of their spiritual lives. For more than than 8 years, Palestinian youth battled Israeli soldiers on the West Bank and Gaza Strip. Hundreds were killed and thousands injured or jailed. The Israeli occupation deprived the Palestinians of their normal lives. But with the signing of the Oslo Accords and the establishment of the Palestinian Authority in the areas vacated by the Israelis, the Palestinians are rebuilding their institutions as they resume their everyday lives. Now, Palestinian youth is back in school and more interested in good education and recreation. But social clubs like this one in Beit Lahia in the Gaza Strip are the only facilities available to thousands of young men to put their spare time to constructive use. Founded in 1979, the club serves a community of 50,000 people. Here, young people can enjoy their favourite sport activities. But during the Israeli occupation, the club, like other Palestinian institutions, suffered from neglect. With funds from the government of Sweden and technical assistance from the UN Development Programme, the club's undergone major renovation and entered a new era. Membership is now open to all, young and old, men and women. One of the main features of the rehabilitation process is the construction of a wall around the club premises to protect it from unauthorised entry. A blessing for the club's soccer team is their new field with a seating capacity of 1,500. The club also offers classes in martial arts. Karate and Kung Fu are very popular among the younger members. Today, these aspiring champions are practicing for an upcoming series of matches. Members of the club enjoy a variety of games. Cards and dominoes are very popular among the older generation. Billiards and table tennis tend to appeal to the young. The club is run by an elected committee. It supervises all activities and coordinates fixtures with other clubs. It meets regularly to plan future events and remains in contact with local authorities involved in community development. All committee members are volunteers. The rehabilitation of Palestinian youth clubs in the West Bank and Gaza Strip is just one aspect of Palestinian efforts to revitalise their institutions. Continued international assistance will be needed so the Palestinian people can rebuild the community facilities that are so essential for peaceful, everyday life. Thank you for travelling with us. We look forward to your company again on the next Globespin.